Hey, hello everyone. I'll write a program that can create an Excel file format, tabular format into a JSON format. So let's just get onto it. So I already have a file that I downloaded from internet. So let me try to open that just to show you what are we trying to convert into JSON. Okay, so here you go. So this is a tabular data having like 8 or 9 columns and around 44 rows. It has got headers and then values. We'll try to convert this file into a JSON format. So let me just close this one for now. To have this file working, we just simply need to create a new file. Let's save it as in the same folder where I had the sample file. I'll just name it, let's say, code file, and we change it to, because we are going to write a VBA program, so we're going to save it as XLSN format. Now let's go into the code window. Okay, yeah, before that I think we should be giving a button where you can just actually go and browse the file and store the path of the file. So let's just have that button here. Yeah, we'll click and we'll say browse file, and then we can just simply write a program that opens a browser window, and then we can just simply go ahead and click it. Okay, before I do that, normally if nobody selects it, I put on error resume next, in case somebody doesn't select any file, and say okay, so on error resume next. It is just avoid any error in file opening. So I'm going to define a, okay, I don't need to define a variable. Let's just directly define a workbook. Even that's not required, we just need to get the file. So we can just simply say application dot get open file name, here it is, and then just open close it, and we are going to save this path into our code file. So our code file is here, so let's save it in here. So normally I rename all my Excel files. Let's open the property window. Yeah, normally I just rename into some simple thing. Instead of writing sheet, I just name it to code so that I can refer it. Really? Okay, so we have it here. So let's just quickly write the program. So we can say just code dot cells. Let's store this value for temporary on row number 4, column number 2 is equal to this. So what it's going to do, it is going to just open a browser and going to save the file into this path. So let's try to see if that works. Okay, I need to assign a macro because I just changed the name. I just say okay, let's see if it works fine. So it basically, if you click on sample code, is going to get the path of the file. So now we got the path of the file. We can just simply start to continue to write the rest of the program. Okay, let's quickly do this. So we are going to create another subroutine wherein we are going to do the rest of the codes for this file. So in here, what we really need to do is first to understand what is the first row, what is the last row. So let me just name it to say convert to JSON. So this is the main code file that we are going to execute. So let's define some basic variables just to get the first row and the last row, open the file and things like this. So I'm going to create an object for, let's say, input file with sample data as workbook. Let's open the workbook and get the file path. So let's say set input file equal to application dot workbooks dot open. So we are just trying to open the workbook and store it into this input file workbook object, and then we're going to put the file. We already know the file. It is in code dot cells row number 4 and 2 dot text. So it is basically going to open the file for us, which is having the data in the tabular format. I'm also going to define an array because I don't want to keep this file open all the time. So let's have an array defined. Let's say file array, or let's say data array for that matter. Data array. I'm going to keep it open as variant because okay, I'll just keep it like this. Then we just need to assign the for this file we need to get all the last records, last row and last column of the file which the data holds. So let's quickly define two more variables. Let's say last row as integer, and let's define another one, say last column as integer, and let's quickly assign the variables. Last row is going to be say input file dot sheets, let's say sheet index 1. This is normally for all the Excel file where we host the data. Dot cells rows dot count. We go to the last row, column number 1. Then let's do and Excel up dot row. So what we are trying to do in here, we are going to the input file, which is our sample file, which is at this path. This path is basically this one. So on this path we are opening this file, setting this object, and then assigning the last row, just getting the last row of the file. So what it is exactly doing is, let's try to open the file first here. So what it is doing, it is getting me value of the last row in here. So we'll get the number 44, line number 44, and then let's get the last column. Again, input file dot sheets, sheet number 1 dot cells, row number 1, column number, say let's say columns dot count, then and Excel to left dot column. So we have got the last row and we have got the last column of the cell. Now what we really need to do is read this file and close the file, so that nothing during the code, the file data doesn't change, the source file data doesn't change. So let's try to store everything into this one. So we are going to redefine redeem data array, and we are going to say 1 to last row as the first dimension, and we are going to put a range for 1 to last column. So we have just redefined this data array, and now we can just quickly go ahead and close the file. So we can say input, because we already stored the data into the array. Oh, we need to store the data into the array first. So let's say data array is equal to input file dot sheets, sheets of course, sheet number 1 dot range cells starting from row 1 comma 1, because we need to start from here, and then the last row is going to be the last row comma last column. So what we are trying to do in here, we are just going to store everything that we have in this file into the array. So now it's going, now this data array holds the entire file. Then now we can just simply go ahead and close the file. Let's say set input file dot close, and we don't want to save anything, we just say false and the file gets closed. Now what we have done so far, we open the file, we got the last row and the last column of the sample data set, we stored the entire inputs into this array of the row, we redefined the array to match the size of the data that we have, and then we loaded all the entries of our sample file into a data array. Now we have closed the file, so now we can just start to work on this. Now what we need is, let's create another tab onto our code which is going to store the converted data. So let's name it as JSON tab, normally as I did earlier, so I'm going to rename this because it makes it easy to code. So we are just going to view the properties window, and then we're going to change the name, and we're going to say it, call it as JSON. So it will make it easier to code. So I have created a file where I'm going to say the converted format. So now what? Let's define another variable called row counter, which is going to read the row through the JSON format. So let's say dim or count as integer. And normally when you start to convert a file into a JSON format, the very first JSON format line holds a value of square bracket. So what I'm going to do is JSON.cells, the JSON sheet, cell number 1,1 is always going to be a square bracket, opening square bracket, right? Now the JSON, the next, if I need to put r count, I need to assign the r count value, and let's assign it to 2 for now. Now let's loop through all the rows and all the columns that we have in our data file, and we'll try to get the proper JSON format out of it. So let's define two more variables, dim I as integer and dim j as integer, just to loop through the entire records that we have. So what I'm going to do in here is quickly going to loop through for I is equal to 1, because our record data file starts from 1 to last row, and then I'm going to loop through the entire columns, and I'm going to say for j is equal to 1 to last column. Now here let's say next j, and let's say next I, just to close the loop. So for every single line, whenever the new record starts, as you know in the JSON format, let me show a sample of the JSON format. I believe I can find something. JSON simple format. Let's go to images. Probably we'll get it. We'll get a quick peek. Very simple data. A sec. If I can get a very simple file, not the nested ones, then I can show it to you. Well, let's take this one. So if you notice, it starts from this one, and then every single record is stored in a curly bracket. So we are going to, the next record is going to be a curly bracket, but this curly bracket is going to start whenever a new row starts. So whenever a new row starts, so I'm going to for now I'm starting from the count, and I'm going to add the r count. Okay, I'm going to add the line, the curly bracket, so that indicates this start of a new record. So we're going to do JSON.cells row number r count, because row number r count value is 2 that we have set already. We are going to put into column number 2 is equal to curly brackets. Why column number 2? Because I just want to indent it like another tab, so we are using another column in the Excel file. Okay, cool. So we have row number 1 is put as this one, and second is this one. Now we are looping through the entire columns. So whenever we do this, of course, after entry we need to get to the next line. So I'm going to increase the row count as row count by 1. So which is simple, row count equal to row count plus 1. Now in here we need to do the rest of the codes. So we need now here we are browsing through the record, one single line going through different columns. So what we actually need to do is get in the line number 1 r count for every single record. We need to keep on increasing, keep on adding the header first. So we know the header lines is stored in data array record number 1. So what I'm going to do is JSON.cells row number, let's say row number is going to be the r count, and the column number is going to be, let's say 3, is equal to, it is always stored in curly double quotes, so we're going to use the double quotes, and the header name, which is always going to be file data array record row number 1 always, and column number is going to be j. This is the very first entry, and this is later being closed with double quotes. And after double quotes there is a column as per the JSON format, and then we have after this we have j equal to 1 to column this. Okay, let's do it from row number 2, not from row number 1. Okay, let me just quickly see if the row number 1 is going to be your square brackets, row number 2 is going to have a curly bracket. Yes, and we are going to start from row number 2 only, because row number 1 is already header, so we don't want to browse through the header again because we have already stored the header information in here. So we don't have to kind of browse through the headers at least. So we got the header, and now we need to put the information under that header. So that header information is again in the column number this. So I'm going to do data array, and let's see, then this space and then column, data array, row number I and column number j, of course, and then we need to put a comma. Okay, that comma is conditional. Again, before this we also need to enclose this into a single quote, and then we're going to include this one, close this one, and then put a comma at the end. So let's put a comma in here. Now this comma will be applied only if it is not the last column. So we are going to put a small if condition in here. Let's put end here, I missed it. So I'm going to put if condition if j is equal to last column, then of course we don't have to end it with comma. Like if you see in this data set, after every end there is a comma, but if it is the last entry, like for example look at this sub data set, if it is the last entry there is no comma at the end. So if it is the last column, I'm not going to put the comma, but if it is not the last column, then I'll be putting the then this, else this, and then let's say end if. So if it is the last line, then I'll be doing the entire same code without comma. So there shouldn't be any comma after this one. Now, so this is basically converting one record into this one. Of course, whenever we convert this record, we need to insert our row count so that whatever next entry comes, it comes into the next row. Row count is equal to our count plus 1. After this, when one entire record is closed, then we have to put a comma to start a new record. So we are going to enter it. Okay, this loop ends after the j loop, the entire column has been completed. What we need to do is okay, then we do again JSON dot cells. We'll try to put the closed curly brackets, which is basically this one, and it is going to be in column number 2 only. So I'm going to just paste it here, and it is going to have a closed bracket. Again, this curly bracket closes only if it is not the last row. If it is not the last row, then we have to actually not have to use this comma. Again, the same logic. So we're going to apply an if condition to find out if it is the last record or not. So if, okay, we can write it here, if I is equal to last row, then we don't put anything else, and we do this one and we say end if. In here, what we quickly need to do is copy this path and remove. If it is last record, we don't have to put comma, and we just close this one. Once the entire job is done, of course, after this, again we need to do our count is equal to our count plus 1, and once this entire job ends, we need to close these square brackets, which is going to be in the our count column number 1. It has to be a closed square bracket. I think the entire code is complete. If you run, it should be converting our Excel format into a JSON file. So let's try to execute that and see if there is any error or not. I'm expecting there would be some error at least. Yeah, let's see. doesn't property or method, which one? File sheet. Okay, set input file equal to this one. Okay, good. Sheets. It should not be giving any error. Let me see. Input file dot sheets one cells. No. Oh, there's a spelling mistake. It has to be count. COUNT. So let's try to run it again. Okay, it has converted. Let's see if it has converted the file properly. Yeah, here it is. So let's see if it has done the good job or not. It looks like yes. I think it did fairly. Is there any error? Doesn't look like. Okay, here is it. So after this, whenever the record is ending, it is adding the value just next to it. So we need to, when this value is added, we need to increase the row count. So whenever, actually I am increasing the count, but in the last row here, of course. So whenever the last row is going through, I think you can just it doesn't matter whether it is the last row or not. We, after entering a record, we have to increase the row count by 1. So let's try to execute it again. Okay, but before, I think I should write a code to clear the entire JSON file, JSON tab. I think I should be clearing this entire file before I can start executing it again. So before, at the beginning of the file itself, let's say json.cells.clear. So it is going to, this code is going to clear the entire file and try to build it from the scratch again. So let's try to execute it again. The execution is done, and now if you see, it is converted into a proper JSON format. So let's try to compare these files next to each other. So I'm going to split my window into 2 parts. This one, and let's have it here. Let's put Control O, open the file basically, which is a sample file, just to see if it is converted it properly or not. So if you see, these are the header names, which are order date, region, represented cost, and total cost. So 1 2 3 4 5, it looks fine. The first row is East John's Pencil 95 East. Okay, the first is date, then East John's Pencil 95. Then we have 1.99 and 1.89, and then rest of the codes. So total number of records all have been converted. Let's go to the last one just to see if the last code is also correct, and if our code is working properly till the end or not. In here, if you see, so it is closing it correctly, fine. So if you look into this last record, it is Central 1221, fine. Central Andrew Binder, yes, 28 4.99 and 39.72. I think this is the proper JSON format. Thank you. In case you have any questions, just ask me in the comment. I'll try to respond. Thank you guys. Bye.